Hello and welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. Behind me, between these two sculptures, is the wildlife corner of my garden, and pride of place in the centre of that garden is my wildlife pond. And in this video I'm going to give you a guided tour of the wildlife corner of my garden, including the wildlife pond. Now there are several different elements which I've included in my wildlife garden. So if you're thinking of creating your own little wildlife space in your garden, whether it be big or small, I'll share my ideas with you, and if you wish, you can take them into yours. Now, a lot of the ideas I've got can be done on a grand scale or a small scale. It's the principle of the thing that matters. So join me now as I get hold of the camera and take you on a tour of the wildlife corner of my garden. So as we enter the wildlife corner of the garden, I think I would like to start off by sharing a few basic principles. I think there are probably 4 of these basic principles. The first one is you've got to try and think like wildlife thinks. It's not about you, it's about them. So with that in mind, I've created this in the furthest, most remote corner of my garden, away from human traffic. I think the other principle is not to be too tidy. I don't think wildlife appreciates tidiness. Just the opposite, really. I think it likes you to be a little bit untidy. So that's a great excuse, really, to relax a bit and be a little bit rough around the edges and just enjoy what's there. I think the other thing is you've got to think of a wildlife garden as a whole ecosystem. It's about the whole food chain from the bottom to the top, from the smallest microorganism to the biggest predator. And if you can think in terms of that food chain and appreciate that actually nature is not always pretty, sometimes you will get a sparrowhawk swooping down and taking a sparrow from the edge of the water. Nature is red in tooth and claw, as they say. You've got to understand that and accept that. And I think the 4th principle really is try and enjoy it. Sit back, enjoy it, take some time out occasionally in amongst your workload and just appreciate what's in front of you. Right, okay, let's get down to basics with this wildlife pond first of all. Now, you can have a wildlife pond or a water feature in your garden of any shape or size, and it doesn't really matter how big it is. Water will bring wildlife. If you build it, they will come. Now, I had space to build a large pond, and I was very fortunate because a company called Pondkeeper decided to support me and give me the pond liner. Now this required a 9 by 9 metre pond liner because it's 6 metres wide and 1 metre deep. So I had a little bit of overlap at the edge. One of the things I really wanted to do was hide the liner so that you couldn't see it. So I've used lots of boulders all the way around the edge. The liner is hidden by boulders. Now this is over 3 years old, this pond now, so it is quite mature. It wasn't always as overgrown and as naturalistic as this, but the principle remains. Try and hide your liner. It's good for the liner not to be exposed to sun, but it also makes it look a lot more natural. And by using boulders like this around the edge, you can see here, it automatically creates little cracks and crevices and hiding places for wildlife to go in. Now, I did place some old rotten logs in. These are useful on many levels. Firstly, they look good, in my opinion. Secondly, birds appreciate them because they can come down and perch before they go down for a drink. And it's also a rotten wood environment. It's a dead wood environment, and underneath all that bark, as these logs rot away, there will be invertebrates and insects and all kinds of microorganisms. And again, as I said earlier, that's part of that ecosystem. Look at this, look how this one here has actually started to grow plants. So that log there, which is rotting and decaying, is feeding that plant. I think it's something else I've already mentioned many times in my videos, is that rot, decay in a garden is not death, it's new life. And in a way, the more you can encourage rot or decay or mould or funguses, you're demonstrating a broader ecosystem and biodiversity. Try and get your pond to be as deep as possible because it provides a warmer environment in the winter. The top might freeze, but it's not freezing at the bottom. And also, don't forget, have ledges so that you can accommodate lots of different types of water plants, because again, that's biodiversity. Not all plants like deep water, some of them like shallow ledges and some of like the margins. And also, don't forget, always with a wildlife pond, have a gradual sloping edge so that any wildlife that does fall in there, for example, a hedgehog or a rabbit or a hare, can get out. And I come down here many mornings and there are lots of birds singing and bathing and drinking of this water. It's wonderful. The other thing they do say about water, pond water, is try and cover the surface. Up to 2/3 of the surface should be covered because it stops the ultraviolet light and the rays from the sun penetrating, which can cause algal blooms. Interesting point here, as I observe what I'm seeing in front of me. It would seem that this time of year, which is June, is the time for yellow plants in the garden. We have these lovely yellow irises here and down here. Another form of yellow plant, I think this is a marsh marigold, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, there we go. That's the wildlife pond. If I think of any other features of the wildlife pond, I will come back to it, but I want to move on to the other features of the wildlife garden itself. Right, over there, a dense hedge. A dense hedge of native species, hawthorn, holly. And that provides cover and shelter for the wildlife from predators and also places for birds to nest, and they can hide in there and assess the environment around them before they come down and have a bathe or a drink. Again, it's a great place for wildlife to shelter. It's a corridor in a way. These hedges go out into open countryside beyond my garden. I will give you a view over that hedge in a moment. That's a pathway for the wildlife to come in on. So there we go, dense, mature, native hedges, not overly pruned. And again, there's hawthorn berries on there, which will provide fruit in the food and fruit in the winter for the birds, and holly berries. Okay, so I'm going to go a bit closer over there because there's two features in that hedge which I've placed there deliberately for the wildlife. The first one is a log pile. This is a deadwood environment. They're all the rage, and really they ought to be, because they are a brilliant environment for rodents to hide in, for birds to nest in, but also this is where the magic happens. I buried half of my log pile into the ground. It creates an interface between the earth and the wood, and all those microbes can start work on the process of generating life. And again, you're talking about the bottom end of the food chain. But microorganisms that get swallowed up by worms and get digested, and they get excreted, and the poo from the worms is food for the soil, but the worms become the food for the birds. It's a wonderful, virtuous cycle. While we're down here, let me just point out these nettles. I always have a nettle patch in my wildlife garden. It's great for butterflies to lay their eggs on. Butterfly eggs are food for birds. Caterpillars are food for birds. The thing about butterflies is they don't lay their eggs on their food source. That's where they lay their eggs. Their food source is the Buddleia butterfly bush, a rich source of nectar for the butterflies. Wonderful. Now over here is a mound of earth which was actually created from the spoil when I dug my pond. So that hole there provided this mound, and onto that mound I scattered 2 or 3 packets of wildflower seeds a few years ago, and they're still coming back year after year. And at the moment it's poppy season. Wonderful poppies. Of course, you know about poppies and opium, but these seed heads eventually will scatter thousands of seeds all over the ground here. Food for rodents, food for buzzards and kestrels and owls. So again, the food chain. And there is the cornflower, the blue of the cornflower. Isn't it wonderful? We've got some thistles. Really, again, this is kind of accentuating that point about not being too tidy. A manicured garden is not really a wildlife friendly garden. So there we go. So there is another feature which I've just recalled from my memory. In fact, there's two more features. Underneath that log pile there is a hibernaculum. There's a video on my channel. I dug a large pit, filled it full of rocks and half plant pots, and put some roofing felt over it and a waste pipe, a soil pipe, into it, and then buried it in 2 feet of earth. And that's a hibernaculum. The waste pipe is so that things can get in and out, and they can go in there underground to hibernate in the winter when it's freezing, because it doesn't freeze underground. Now normally, and I haven't this year, my buddleia every spring get pruned right down to about a foot to 18 inches. And the reason I do that is it keeps the blossom at eye level where you can enjoy the smell of it. The point I'm making here is I pile the branches that I've pruned up here. I don't move them off the site, I just leave them here. Now I can tell you this, if I was to dig that up or turn it over, underneath there, there'll be thousands of different invertebrates and organisms scurrying away and eating and chewing and digesting. And again, that is your biodiversity. Leave some rubbish to rot. And there is a foxglove. Interesting plant, the foxglove. And I've said this before in other videos. That plant is poisonous. Every part of it are poisonous. If you eat that, it can kill you. But at the same time, scientists have discovered a compound in that plant which can regulate the heartbeat for people with heart failure. So it's a plant that can either kill you or cure you. And it's a wonderful plant for bees. They go up there and take the nectar, and then they go to the next one and the next one, and so on. And as these get pollinated, more open up above, and then in the wintertime that can sow hundreds and thousands of seeds all over the place, and you end up with them naturalizing all over your garden. Quite a lot of folklore behind the foxglove, and I ought to do a full video on it. So we have a twig pile, a log pile, a hibernaculum, a dense mature hedge, a wildlife corridor, a wildlife pond, all in the corner of my garden. Now, one of the things I would suggest that you do if you make a wildlife garden or a wildlife pond or both, and if you can afford it, because they're not inexpensive, is get a wildlife trail camera and put it down near your pond and just enjoy the footage that you get. And I've had all kinds of things here. I have frogs, toads and newts in that water. I have great crested newts in that water. One night I actually counted 22, and that is a protected endangered species, the great crested newt. Frogs and toads also. I have hedgehogs down here. I've got footage of a fox coming down here, and I've had ducks on here. And as I'm stood here talking to you, I'm observing the hedge, and I can see sparrows and blue tits and a robin and a wren. So again, a variety of different birds. Isn't it wonderful? Right, I think that more or less covers the wildlife corner of my garden and its elements. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's been useful. I'll come back on camera now and say goodbye. Thank you for watching my wildlife garden video. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit the like button and share it, because it helps the algorithm know it's a nice video for people to watch. And there are other ways you can support me, and your support is always appreciated. Thank you very much. The first is to use my Amazon links to do your shopping, because every penny I make through Amazon goes back in the garden. And the third thing, apart from watching my videos and my Amazon links, is to have a look at my club. I've launched a club for members. I'm not going down the YouTube membership route. I've set up my own club with a friend of mine called Jerry. It's all above board and kosher. We do GDPR and all that kind of thing. And you get my newsletter, you get exclusive content, and every month I give away all the products that product providers send to me to review. So we have a monthly prize draw. So thanks again for watching. Have a look at my website Join my club and I'll see you soon for some more wildlife gardening adventures. Bye for now.